What's up, everybody? TJ here. Real quick before we get started with the episode, I'm testing out a new feature called Fan Mail, which is where you can actually text me from the episode that you're listening to. So as you're listening to this, go over to the episode description, and right there at the beginning, you're going to see some text that says, send me a text message. Go ahead, click that. Let me know what you think about the podcast so far. Let me know of any questions, concerns, anything you might have. I love to hear from you. So go ahead, hit that up. I'm excited to read your text, and let's get started with the episode.
Hi, friends. TJ here. I wanted to let you know that this episode of our podcast covers a very difficult topic, the line of duty death of a fellow firefighter. If you're feeling particularly sensitive or vulnerable right now, you may want to consider skipping this episode altogether or listening with caution. Look, it's really important to take care of ourselves and each other. And if you or somebody that you know is struggling, please do not hesitate to reach out for help. The National Suicide Prevention Lifeline is available at 1-800-273-8255. And the IAFF Center for Excellence is available at 855-900-8437.
Welcome to the Keep the Promise podcast, where we help build resilient and well-rounded firefighters.
You know how we have like a combined love and fondness for like that alt reggae beach rock?
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to throw it out there. Dirty Heads is at the bottom of the list for me.
I hate you.
So,
No, we're stopping. No, we're stopping the podcast.
East Coast
It's over.
And local Ballyhoo
Yes.
and Bumpin' Uglies.
Bumping
Annapolis.
Okay.
Let's go West Coast. Now we're at Revolution,
Yes.
the Elevators.
Okay.
Far superior.
No way.
Far superior.
You can't. No. There's
Dude, I'm talking like our
different levels.
in our backyard.
Different.
It's not even different levels.
Apples and oranges, Josh. I can't believe you.
I don't.
I can't believe.
It's just,
No.
it is what it is. I said my piece. Dirty Heads bottom of the list.
I can't believe you let what he do. How long do you think he's been preparing this?
It pumped in my head the other day because I know you're a Dirty Heads fanatic,
Massive fanatic.
and I have my own curated playlist, and I don't know if there's a Dirty Head song on there at all.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, this is the last episode of the Keep the Promise podcast.
So, and then our fondness. Think like folk, Tyler Childers, and like Zach Bryan, obviously. Have you heard Sam Barber?
Not yet.
Sam Barber, gotta check him out.
Something to do today.
Yeah, you're gonna be. I think you're gonna be a fan.
The whole folk thing for me I never really had much of that until the last year when I came back and Ryan was there, and he's a big music guy and would play that for dinner prep. And then, yeah, I've been listening to that a lot since then.
Yes, that it's totally in that genre, but I found like Instagram Reels totally got me.
Oh, yeah.
They got me good.
Recently, one of them, like, I heard one song, one reel, looked it up, and I've been hooked on that thing for like 2 weeks.
Right. That's actually a good segue, though, because I got a little music reference as we get into it from when we're when I was on my drive back home. But we're going to be talking about some heavy stuff.
We are.
We're going to be talking about some heavy stuff.
And we'll do it. By this point, you probably heard another warning disclaimer at the beginning. But yeah, we're going to be delving deep into life post Woodscape. I don't think we're going to be talking so much about the incident per se to start with. It's just what happened afterwards. And for that, we are joined by a wonderful friend, hell of a firefighter, and an absolute beast at the gym, Andy Hoffman. Andy, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
I hope you're happy to be here. We are pumped to have you.
Yeah, I'm excited.
And Andy's a man of many words, as you can tell. I have to bring out his crackhead energy. That's cool. I'm good at doing that.
Where just hit us with some of the facts outside the firehouse. Like, you have your own road named after you. Tell us about it.
Yeah. I'm from Gettysburg, PA. One of those PA guys that
finds
drives
her way across the Mason-Dixon.
Yeah, in the horse and buggy. And we have a farm there that I spend grew up at and I live there now and spend a lot of time there. So that's how I got, that was most of my childhood besides that and youth sports, volunteer firehouses that led to paramedic school that led to Howard County.
Yeah. Multi-generation farming operation too, right?
Yep. Grandparents were there when I was a kid, dairy farm, and my earliest memories are there. And probably had a lot to do with the type of individual I am now, which, I was doing whatever Grandpa and Dad were doing, picking rocks and throwing hay bales. And then when Grandma was inside doing cross-stitch and knitting, we were doing that too. So
right.
That's what a lot of the early stuff looked like.
One of the most interesting men in the world.
Yeah, the man of many talents.
That's where it came from.
Right. Yeah, grunt work is like, it's not even grunt work for you. That's just what it is. I feel like.
It's so funny. When you were one of the pioneers in the CrossFit in my world and brought it to the firehouse and all that. And originally I didn't pay much attention to it. And then I kind of always kidded around in my head about it. It was like, what CrossFit's what everybody else calls work. And they are very similar, but I've grown to love that conditioning and strength as well. Yeah. So I have a love for it.
Yeah. When I graduated the academy, 17 years ago, we came out to the same firehouse together. You were my mentor.
Barely. I think we learned a lot from each other.
We did. It was the beginning of like an awesome like foundation. I know for me. Yeah. And then we already had some craziness in our first year. I know for me, where we were first assigned. And it was just funny how throughout our careers and friendships kind of passed and intermingled, and we found our way back at 7 together.
I think about that a lot. Yeah. The way that started, and then, we didn't really see each other or spend a lot of time together for 10 years. And then all of a sudden we were back there picking up where we left off, and that was great.
Yeah.
It's funny how things work out like that.
Yeah, it really is. And then when we both found our way back to 7, just having picking back up where we left off and then just being able to get back on the wagon together. And then we just had an awesome relationship, which is the shift in general. Like we were vibing really well.
It's very special.
It's a very special place. It was a good thing. But fast forward a little bit, the night of Woodscape, where were you riding?
71 Charlie behind you.
Yeah.
It was Trini's birthday. I remember making the conscious thing about that morning to have him ride the line for his birthday.
Yeah.
So that's how that went down. And I ended up in the C seat and little tidbit in wearing the S7 R2 BA. Specifically, something that sticks out in my mind. It wasn't the Charlie BA. It was a reserve.
Yeah.
That I was wearing that night. So when I see that, I always think about that a little bit.
Yeah.
That's the one I was wearing.
Yeah, we were back on. What were you riding?
I was Tower 10 Bravo.
You were Tower 10 Bravo.
Uh-huh. And talk about BAs, I remember that because we were lucky enough that the specials by that point had gotten the integrated thermal imagers on their BAs.
Yeah.
Both seats. I know the engines only had it on one, on the lineman. And that ended up playing a huge role when I walked into the house, when I crawled into the house, and my actual main tick just died. Thanks a lot, Bullard. And Josh, you were bossing 71, right?
I was a lieutenant on 71 that night. Yep. So, and I'm sure we'll do a more in-depth review of the line of duty that we were involved with. And there are some presentations that are out on YouTube, and maybe we can leave and link out to those. And that can be a conversation for another day. But we're going to talk about just what came after Woodscape and the decisions that were made, the emotions that we went through. And the goal, I think, for a lot of us is, sure, there's going to be maybe some decompression and healing, but I think it's also hopefully some others can live through our experience and maybe prepare themselves, God forbid, if they're ever in a similar situation. Like, there are going to be some feelings and emotions that you go through. You have to make decisions. You're going to have some togetherness. You're definitely going to experience hardship. And maybe if you can live a little bit through our lens, hopefully we'll prepare you a little bit better for an event that you may have to go through. Because I know we've learned from other people as well.
Yeah.
And I
even
think that
to
helped
say-
us with the connection. I think we've managed pretty well, all things considered.
For sure.
And, we had each other.
And I think it's also key to understand what happens beyond the firehouse and beyond the report. Because for most of us, when we're introduced or when we're exposed to line of duty deaths, it's like, this happened, this is a report, these are the recommendations, this is how the department's taking action. That's very
Linear.
Exactly, very linear, very if this then that, but there's so much gray area. We talk about operating in the gray as much as we do in the fire service, and there's just so much beyond that, because like the feelings of you coming back to that firehouse, to seeing the same SCBA that you were wearing that night, like even sometimes the same smells, like that stuff that gets abstracted, gets taken out of all these reports that a majority of the people, unless they've been through, they're not going to understand. So we're hoping to open that discussion about the things beyond the report and beyond the fire service.
Yeah.
I remember at all the NIOSH reviews that we did as part of our weekly training stuff, I had never really considered what it was like for the people left behind and what they might have been feeling or going through. And then when I started experiencing that, it took me really by surprise. So I'm really, for a long time I thought about the need to speak out about it and prepare people, give people an idea, or even like when some neighboring departments would experience that, I really felt the need to like go warn them.
Yeah.
Like, hey, bud, this is going to be a multi-year thing, and here's some things to look out for. So I'm really glad that we're able to sit down here and talk some of this through, and hopefully somebody can pull something from it that will make a difference to them.
Yeah. I think we all want that, and we all needed that. I think we were fortunate enough that we were close enough that we had some of that.
Sure.
But there are definitely people that did not have that. And they probably struggled a lot more. So
we're very fortunate that we were tight. I mean, as tight, I think, as companies get beforehand. And the way that we were all able to survive that together in the aftermath. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I know we all have kind of like our own little story. I think there's a lot of crossover, and I know we're all going to hit on that together, and we're all going to have some of our own stories, separate from all of us, and we're all just going to kind of jump in. There's no real good rhyme scheme to what we're doing, so anybody listening can just bear with us, hopefully we'll keep it interesting enough, and with a good flow. But I know that as we were coming, we were writ that night, and teamed up with Truck 7 from our own house, and we worked really well together. And we had gotten Nate, and we were bringing him out through the basement. We handed him to 105, which it was Nate's own crew. It's your station. And I remember Glenn immediately took charge and did a phenomenal job of taking charge. Yeah, bringing Nate out.
That was legendary. It was what, and to give context, and it was 2018. So Glenn had a year on, year and a half on, and this, by every stretch of the imagination, per textbook, this guy's technically still a rookie, and he threw himself on top of Nate and literally said, "This is my patient. Everybody shut the fuck up. You're doing what I'm telling you." And he's talking to like 20, 25-year paramedics with a ton of experience. And I think that set the stage for that valiant attempt that they made to get Nate back. And I tell Glenn all the time, I'm proud of how well he performed that night.
Yeah, he took charge.
He did.
He definitely took charge.
A very, very vivid image of him.
Same.
As soon as I came out of the backslider, I can see him today as it was yesterday.
Yeah, same.
Working over Nate.
Yeah.
And I was impressed.
Yeah.
A bit of a segue. Now we're talking about random images that get stuck in our minds. I don't know where you guys were when Cat fell through the deck. When the stairs gave way under him, because you just heard this like splat. And I know we lost Cat a year ago around this time.
It was this month last year.
Yeah. And I remember this man just came down like a full story, like
onto this like hard pavers is what they were, and people were trying to get him to the ambulance. And again, like the image of Cat like shrugging these people off, saying I'm okay. Like he started shoving people away. I'm like, dude, you just took a tumble.
And he's an amazing fireman. And to provide
yeah.
more context, we were so spent after bringing Nate out of the crawl space and going through what we did. He was the guy who came in, got him out the rest of the way, and helped us bring him out. So he did that. A few minutes later, he's up on the deck doing work, and the deck gives way, and he got seriously injured.
Oh, yeah.
He was off the floor for a while.
He went down hard.
Yeah. But he kept working. But yeah, he passed away from, occupationally related cancer. So it's a year ago this month.
Yep.
I remember specifically sitting on the back wall of that landscape wall where we all were lined up. And when he fell through, and I looked at Trini and I said, this place is fucking cursed. And he looked at me and said, what is happening?
Yeah. You're absolutely right. And we know this now. Within 1 to 2 minutes of us leaving the crawl space that we were in collapsed.
If that.
Yeah.
If that. When I was listening to Joe Connect's presentation, he said that when he went back up that short flight of steps where Los initially had gone up, he remembers being there looking out at what used to be the floor, and it was collapsed. Yeah. And that was, he said he specifically remembered when Captain Love was saying over the radio that we had him, and we had just gotten back to the top of the steps where Los was.
Yeah.
When that happened. So if it was 1 to 2 minutes and putting those couple pieces together, it may have been much less than that.
And that sticks with me. Like there could have been, we lost Nate, but there could have been 7 of us.
It's so wild to think like when we were in there, I never really felt in danger.
Yeah.
But then looking back and, putting some of these pieces together and hearing some of the other guys' stories of that.
Bro, isn't it funny how that works?
It
just being able
it was close.
Still piece it together. I mean,
yeah.
But not even feeling that danger at the time. Like looking back on it now, every like alarm bell goes off. You're like, dude, we're in a bad spot. By the time you're like, whatever,
There was a certain unique peace, calm over the actions.
Yeah.
And where we were and what we were doing that I never felt worried.
Same. I think I knew that it was bad, but I also knew that we were making forward progress. There was a small little actionable things that we kept working on, and they kept advancing that needle forward bit by bit. And so I knew that any curveball or setback that we had, we were managing, and it provided more confidence. And I knew that we all trusted each other to the nth degree, that there was no worry about what everybody was doing. Also, we all knew the mission, and we could operate independently and have that sense of togetherness to make it all happen as well. So I think that can't be understated,
Yeah. And where I was, there was 1 or 2 periods where I could stop for a second, focus on my breathing a little bit, make sure we were conserving air right. And then by the time we got back to the top of the steps, my bell was going off, but I knew where we were and where we were headed, and we were going out. So that was really like the check marks of that progression.
Yeah.
Like, the bell's going off, but we're good. We know where we're going. We got some time.
Yeah. Yeah. So we passed them off to 105. They did their work, and we knew like we were no good after that. Number one.
Yeah. I remember definitely thinking, sorry to interrupt.
No.
When I came out of the backslider, thinking that there was work to do. And then Chief Bean said something that I think about a lot still. The sweetest words probably I've ever heard, which was, go over there and take your stuff off. You're done.
Yeah.
And whenever we all got together at Station 3 for that one of those first kind of gatherings to get some information, I pulled him aside and told him, like, I don't know if you learned that somewhere, you were taught that in a chief's class or seminar or something, I don't know, but that made a big difference. Like, that was crucial at that time.
Yeah.
To just have that separation between, you're done with this, go over there and stand down.
Yeah.
That's just me.
No, it was huge for us. And I remember I knew that I just physically wasn't even able to do anything if there was something to be asked of me or us. But I remember there's still some fire showing in some weird places from the exterior. And I remember being in a t-shirt by that point and just knocking down little bits of fire that I could just to keep moving and to stay busy. And I think we all knew that it was bad, but there was, I don't know, maybe for me just holding on that little shred of hope and being surprised that Nate was going to be okay, you know?
Yeah.
And I know we all went out back, and while we're waiting, said a little prayer.
Yeah.
We kind of joined up in a circle, and everybody from 7 said a little prayer. I didn't really have good words. It just...
No, they were great.
Something.
I remember that. It was short, sweet, and thankful to have that memory.
Yeah. Yeah. And
I had a really good feeling at that point. When I first put my hands on Nate, my gut reaction was that he was dead. So in my mind, I knew that, or I would have been shocked if I had heard anything away from that.
Yeah.
But
yeah, he had the look. From what bits I could see, I remember when we were bringing him out, he had the look and the feel.
Definitely the feel. That's the biggest sensory thing that I probably have outside of hearing past devices going off is the sheer amount of stiffness and the zero feedback that I got when I had my hands on him. Usually if you're wearing clothing or gear, the gear moves, your skin moves under it.
Mm-hmm.
If you slide your hands across somebody, there's some give there.
Yeah.
And I didn't have that. It was like rolling a 3-foot log.
Yeah.
I remember that very vividly.
Sure. Yeah. Remember just that idle time was just awkward as hell.
Yeah.
I remember going to the wagon and talking to another lieutenant. He's like, dude, what happened in there? And all I could say was, we got trapped and we got out and we brought him out. I have no idea.
Yeah.
We were trapped. We got out. We kept going. We got him. He came out. I'm beside I don't know what to say right now. We were just drenched.
I think that's a really kind of important point is like we were there and we knew what we did. But we don't know what happened before that. We don't really know what happened after that.
Yeah.
I can't even try to venture a guess.
Mm.
When you hear people talk about that, it seems like people think that they have a pretty good idea of what happened, but it's like if you weren't immediately there, intimately involved, you don't really know what happened.
So many more questions than answers. And as firemen, I feel like we do a really great job of trying to fill the void with as little information as possible.
Try to make sense of it. But,
You just don't know.
Along the lines of what you said about when we were had left the back of the house and we were putting our stuff back. I remember kind of putting my SCBA back in its bracket and the buddy breathing whip hanging out.
Yeah.
Another one of those images that's burnt in there.
Yeah.
And I would kind of thought about the next crew coming in there that would have to pick all that back up and put it back in service.
Yeah.
And what that might have looked like or the feeling they might have had whenever they were doing that.
Sure. I remember feeling super guilty because we had 1,000 feet of 4-inch in the street. Just apologizing, like, I am so sorry. You have to re-rack that. And like gear was just nasty and
a mess.
Just thrown up in the cab. And cause I just assumed we left on the rig, we were going to bring it back. And we didn't.
Yeah.
I jumped up in the front of the cab and I fortunately had my phone with me. And I remember texting my wife and my mom because I grew up in the area and I'm sure she would know. And obviously when I texted my wife that something just like, hey, we made it out. We're okay. Whatever you hear.
Yeah.
We're okay. And I remember my wife woke up to the text message and she told me one of our friends from Pittsburgh had already seen the news when she woke up first thing. And she saw the text from her friend in Pittsburgh, like, hey, is Josh okay? And she immediately flipped over and saw mine and was like, yeah, he's okay. I don't know what's going on, but like, he's okay. And we all start making our way up the street we have our MAB medical ambulance bus, that big thing. And we knew that we'd be going to the hospital and they'd be ringing, kind of wrangling a bunch of us up. And it was mostly people from 7 and 10, I feel like, that were all together.
Yeah. And 5.
5 a little bit.
Yeah.
And we walk away from the scene. We knew we were done. And the aide that night, our friend, another guy from 7 who's detailed to be the aide that night, Brian.
He's the best.
One of my best
Love
friends.
that guy.
He looks at me and looks down at the ground and holds up a 4.
Yeah.
And it was then I knew that, Nate had passed. And then was acting fire chief because our other fire chief was doing like humanity work out of country.
Yeah.
And he told everybody that, Nate had passed.
Yeah.
We're sitting on the side of a road and let us all know. And, you see some grown men cry and you see a lot of people,
Yeah.
Give hugs and just look down at the ground and kind of kick rocks,
At that moment, people would kind of, it was quiet, obviously.
Yeah.
But people, at least the guys, I remember Tim Daly, a couple guys from 10 and us, and like the only thing that we knew to do, and which was exceptional, was to go up to somebody and be like, "Hey, you good? Hey, you good?" And it kind of cracks me up now. Like that's all we knew at the time.
That's all you know.
That's
right?
all we knew was to be like, check in on your buddies. And
all we knew was was like, "Yeah, I'm good."
Yeah, yeah, I'm good. We were 15 minutes post, like
Craziest
nobody
moment of
had
our
any
lives.
idea.
Yeah.
We did. And we didn't know the ride that was coming. We just didn't know. And similarly, like when we showed up to work that day, like you don't know what's coming.
Yeah.
It's another day. It's not like you get to prepare. Like you got to take the prep that you've already done, the discipline of all the previous months of shifts and go with what you got.
Yeah.
Just kind of interesting. And then we were in the bus and I didn't have my phone that night. I left it on the bedside. When those certain tones in the bunk room go off, I just go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
No shoes, put a shirt on the way, maybe.
Okay.
But I didn't have my phone. And I used yours.
Yeah.
To call Kristen first. She answered. And then I called my dad because I knew my mom, she wakes up early and I didn't want her to wake up and see something on the news and me not have my phone and them to have those few minutes of panic.
Mm-hmm.
So I was able to reach home. Thanks for the phone.
Yeah. I remember looking down, Munn was sitting next to me, who was, right there alongside of us, and he had his head down. I remember it just being eerie because you got the red lights of the
That was
bus,
so weird,
just
dude.
having those red lights on.
Yeah.
And he was looking down at his phone and just swiping pictures while looking at his kids. Just tears rolling down his face. I remember I put my arm around him and I remember thinking, like, I cannot wait to be home, see my kids. That's one of those images, just, we're shoulder to shoulder and, in one of those moments where you feel, I don't want to say you feel weak, but you have that other family, your literal biological family that's back home, that's probably, they're freaking out as well. I mean, you can get into the stories of what the wives and kids and spouses had to go through as well, because they experienced it a different way. And
it's a whole nother story.
It's a whole other story. Yeah.
God bless.
So we're on our way. I remember we walked into the hospital. We get dropped off. We go to the ER. I remember seeing, we were assigned at 7, so we were right next to the hospital, and we knew some of the nurses and some of the staff. And
Dude, back then everybody knew everybody.
Everybody knew everybody,
It was
for
sure.
the most incestuous, weird little family between all of us in public service.
Yeah. I just remember I kept apologizing because I probably smelled like a friggin' sweaty Foot Locker.
Let's go back to the MAB ride.
Yeah.
Because the very eerie part about that is that it was a bus full of firefighters and it was just quiet.
Oh, you could hear a pin drop.
Like you go anywhere with more than one of us and there's going to be grab-assing, something's going to be getting broken. And, somebody's probably making a call to headquarters being like, these guys are acting fools.
Yeah.
And it was just so I think I tried to doze off on that. At one point I remember I closed my eyes because I think like having the darkness of my eyes closed was a little more comforting than
the red light.
The quietness. I'm like, all right, if I close my eyes and I focus on trying to hear the like road noises and maybe feel like a pothole here and there, I can just kind of like drift away from this. Because when I knew things were really bad is when I didn't see what Brian did. I still held on a little bit of hope. You know, I had like 5 years in at the time. So, you know, I'm still young, dumb. I'm so excited. I'm like, dude, we can make it through anything. And the chief dropped the news, and I saw Lowe's just kind of like blink a couple times and put his hands behind his head. And I am watching this giant, literally and figuratively.
Yeah.
I'm watching one of the dudes that I look up to, and Timmy too. And I see the sadness and the defeat in their eyes. And I'm like, oh, we're fucked. Like, if I'm watching these dudes, these literal giants, get hit so hard, what's in store for me? Like, I was still kind of like shell-shocked enough that I'm like, oh God, am I really in the middle of this? Like, is this a horrible nightmare? And yeah, that was foreshadowing. That was foreshadowing for the months and years to come.
Los is a vivid image in my head too. I remember that very clearly. Yeah, I remember him kind of looking up at the sky and seeing him tear up, and he's just, yeah, like you said, he's a massive man, and he was the backbone of Seven for us. I feel like
the big brother.
He was
for sure.
He was the guy. He was like the Godfather. He'd been there some of the longest. He's one of the OGs, and to see him kind of, you know, in a little bit of pain, showing a little bit of hurt and emotion was like, yeah, this is rough. I know we all have our own little experiences at the hospital, but I remember, you know, there was almost like a receiving line, and walking in, like everybody could go in and say some words if you wanted to. I remember standing in the threshold of his room. He's draped in a flag. And I remember feeling awkward. I remember like standing in the doorway, just looking at the flag and not knowing like, what the hell what am I supposed to do? Like, what am I supposed to say? Like, people are going in saying something like, what? I have no fucking clue what I'm supposed to do or say right now. Yeah. So I stood in the threshold, you know, and I just walked out. I didn't know what to do.
Yeah.
And I mean, obviously people are hugging and talking and crying, and the investigators came in and immediately like, you got to write everything down that you know and press hard to make 3 copies kind of thing.
God, that was miserable. And
that kind of sucked. I mean, it was probably good in that it was a little bit of a distraction, but it was also like, and I feel it for them, like they have to have reports and paperwork and things to figure out. I remember just being super awkward. I remember looking up as I'm writing the report, and I could look over my left shoulder and I had a straight shot, and I could just see the flag, see his body, and then put my head down and keep writing. I'd look up and I'd look over, and there's the flag again, and he's just in the room, and look back down and keep writing. It was just really eerie.
I will be forever thankful for Christy that night, who basically made that entire red side our side.
Yeah.
Like, she
shut down half the ER.
Yeah, she literally like moved all the I don't know what like acrobatics they had to pull, but they moved everybody out and closed the doors and kept people from coming out into our spot, which was huge. And I'll talk about space later on when we get back to the firehouse, because that's my bone to pick. But that was a solid gesture. And I remember I went out, if you come into the ER and not where Nate, again, like I know which room he was in, but I never went in to see him. If you start walking towards where the waiting room is, the last room on the right, that's where I ducked in. Because by that point, my phone was blowing up. A couple of the guys from the city were just either waking up on duty, or like a couple of the guys that I know are just going to work. And I remember my friend Ethan, all caps, saying, "Dude, are you okay? What happened?" My buddy Mike in DC, same thing. Like, everyone was just reaching out. And I'm trying to put myself in their shoes. Like, they're probably terrified. Like, I need to reply ASAP, because I don't want them to start thinking the worst.
For sure.
And then I'm like, holy fuck, my parents are probably just now waking up. And I had called them. We, Tower 10, we kind of like made a pact. We're like, hey, talk to like on scene. We'll talk to the loved ones. No details, just like a check-in. Hey, it's me. I'm okay. We don't know anything else. And that was at the hospital. That was my first real breakdown, because that's when I call my parents. They're just waking up, like, for real. My mom is terrified. I'm an only child. She's, they never wanted me to go into the fire service to begin with. And now I'm breaking the news to her that we lost one of our guys. And it was just the pain in her voice. And I'm just like, I remember I was like half in, like I was leaning on the bed and I was just like half out of it. And it's just like tears streaming down my face. I'm like, I don't know what we're going to do. I don't know what happens next. I have no idea. I need to walk out of this room and see what everybody else is doing. Like,
Yeah.
I think we just threw ourselves into work. And by that point, it was the work was do the reports and get semi cleaned up for when Celeste showed up, and try to like keep your shit together and at least show as much respect as you can for this absolute angel who's going through the worst.
Yeah, Nate's wife, Celeste, we all got the message that, hey, she's coming. She's on her way. And I remember we all lined up in the ER, and it was, from what I remember hearing, it was in an effort to, one, obviously show respect, and then also have, it's almost like a receiving line. Like, she doesn't have to awkwardly, like, where am I going? Like, we're almost guiding her to the room.
Yeah, and blocking her from the rest of the ER, from anybody else. It's like, hey, yes, yeah. you're with family now, and we're protecting you.
But I remember they said, stand at attention. And a couple seconds later, they're like, hey, false alarm. I remember thinking, mother.
Dude, that was the worst.
Because
we did it like 5 times.
I could visualize Celeste coming through the doors, an utter wreck, and having to see that and witness that, and knowing they have kids. I just want to be home. And once they're like, hey, no, false alarm. I was like, that just like crushed me. And I was like, I remember I made a phone call to 7 and talked to one of the guys. I was like, listen, don't do it yet. If I give you the green light, can you get here as soon as you can to pick us up? It's like, yep, you just say the word. And I remember I turned around and looked at you guys and like, listen, I have a ride for us. If you want to stay here and be here for Celeste, I'm good with that. If you don't want to go through that, we can go back and leave, and we can, take care of us.
I remember that. And my gut feeling at that moment was that I was ready to leave, but I didn't really want to say anything in case somebody else wanted to be there. But I'm thankful to not have that image. And I'm thankful that we did what we did.
I felt like I strong-armed people a little bit, because you guys were like, no, whatever you want to do, it's fine.
And honestly, we didn't know what to do.
And yeah, we really didn't.
There's no protocol.
So,
I know.
Yeah.
I do feel like I did not want to see Celeste selfishly go through that. And I wanted to be home. And so I just made the decision. All right. One of our guys picked us up, got us back to the firehouse. Yeah. And as we're driving out of the parking lot, the black SUVs with Celeste are pulling in.
Yeah.
I remember being mixed, like we dodged a bullet. And I felt like it was this weird mix of like, you couldn't man up for a couple more minutes and be there for her. And then there was that also part where like, no, you're protecting you and your guys' mental well-being and not having to witness that either. I was split down the middle.
Yeah.
It was weird.
It was the things you remember, but I remember the guys from 7 that had like went through our stuff, like our lockers and our gym bags and stuff, and brought us clean clothes or whatever, which was just a little detail. Nobody changed in the hospital. We just went back, but
it was a nice gesture.
Very thoughtful.
Looking out for us. Yeah. Remember we get to the firehouse and I'm walking through the engine bay. Obviously all kinds of people are there, and it's kind of humming. And I remember walking through and I see 3 people, 3 young guys off in the back, just kind of huddled up. I remember thinking, this is the first day of our recruits class, the latest recruit class. They just graduated and this is their first day on the job.
Yep.
And I took a second. I remember thinking, if this was 12 hours earlier, it could have been one of them on this call. And you could just see their like starry eye. They don't know what the hell to do or say. And I remember walking over to them and saying, guys, I am going to apologize in advance. We don't really know what to do or say right now. And we are trying to figure this out. We're going to be figuring this out for a while. And all I ask is patience. Please be patient with us. We're going to support you as best we can. Normally we have a routine and it's going to be a little bit different right now. And so I just ask that you be patient with us and we'll get you right as soon as we can. But I really don't have the words for you right now. And they were incredibly understanding. And I'm sure that was very awkward for them. First 5 minutes on the job, walking in the firehouse, and it's just mayhem,
Can't imagine.
And officers coming up and saying, like, hey, what happened? What do you know? And just say what little bits you did, but you really didn't know. People were trying to piece it together. And I remember I got my stuff. I didn't even unmake my bed. Like somebody had to do it for me later on. But I remember thinking, all right, check in with a couple people and then I'm going to roll. And looking back, I didn't realize after the fact how many people had stayed at the station for a while just to be with each other. I remember looking back and thinking, man, as much as I wanted to be home, I was hard on myself. I felt like I failed the guys because they all hung out. They needed to be together and decompress a little bit more. And I chucked the deuces.
Again, there's no protocol.
The way it works out.
And I think you would
don't
have
know.
kicked yourself if you had stayed at the firehouse too.
Yeah.
Like it's so difficult because
And everybody deals with it in their own little way, and everybody that needed a ride or needed something had somebody. There was already peer support there and a lot of other people there.
It was in the works.
I do remember one member of the peer support team kind of mentioning to me that people will want to stay there and be with each other. So I think, we had the togetherness, but eventually got to go home. Which is kind of, I don't really remember much about. I don't remember the ride home at all. I don't remember talking to anybody or anything. And I think sometimes the brain kind of throws in some protective measures here and there.
Oh, definitely.
To keep you from remembering some things.
Absolutely.
I remember, guys starting to trickle out, and then I left, and before I left, I asked Trini what he was going to do, and I think he said he was going over to the union office to hang out there for a while before he went home.
Okay.
Which I'm not even sure if I ever checked to see if he actually did that or what. Some point you got to go.
So while you guys are all doing this, we were in a Sprinter van on the way to the ME's office downtown. And it really sucked because 105 was a reserve, and one of the old Hortons, the snub-nosed Ambos. So it wasn't even one of our regular Ambos. It was just crappy thing that was going to implode at any point. And we put everybody from 10, everybody got thrown into a Sprinter van. I remember I was in the cargo compartment. I think it was just George and me back there. Not belted, no nothing. Like we're just kids. I'm oh, whatever. If we get hit, we're just gonna bounce everywhere. Who cares? Also, vivid image of Jimmy Joyce, who was at that point on day work, and he came in and he was in the hospital parking lot saluting Nate as 105 was pulling out, and we came down Cedar to get on 32 to go up 95, and we started seeing obviously. People lining up at intersections, and a couple of volunteer units had already shown up. Out in the distance, you see this even bigger column of smoke. We're holy fuck! What's there left to burn at that place? I didn't realize how much worse it got after we left.
Yeah.
Because, we stopped all firefighting efforts, so it just came back with renewed anger and intensity. And, we took that trip up, and it was, again, we started seeing on overpasses, engines, ladder trucks, people saluting. We had our own procession. It's cool seeing that show of support. And every time you go under one of those, it stings. Because you're like, fuck, like, it's for one of ours. It's for one of our guys. But I think the nicest thing was and I can't even tell you where the ME's office is downtown. I have no clue. But there were a couple of city units who showed up, like, blowing through intersections, lights and sirens. They're, like, running people off the road. Some crackheads, like, running for cover. And these guys show up, and they're like, hey, we don't know what we're doing, but we're here for you guys. Like, whatever you need us to do. And I don't remember who it was. I wish I could remember. But it was just, it felt nice. Like, it felt like it's not the usual, hey, we got it from here, brother. It's like,
we are here.
We are here. We don't know what else to do, but if you want to go somewhere, if you want to do something, if you just want us to chill or go away, like, whatever you need us to do. It was very genuine, and I'm very appreciative, and I'm glad we've been able to repay them by helping out in the years since. So yeah, for us that was the beginning of the roller coaster, because there was a lot of ceremony, a lot of like pomp and circumstance that just felt weird. Like, we had to have 4 people moving his Emmy's gurney into the elevator, but it had to be only people in uniform. Like, it was, again, weird protocols. Like, weird that even Schulte was, Schulte's an outspoken guy. He's like, are you kidding me right now? Like, can we all just file all of us in there? Like, what? And then...
Yeah, some guys had to stay out, right? Because they were not in uniform. And that was like a big to-do. Like, you won't let me go with him. Like, and apparently not. Like, right here, they had to stay out.
Yeah, but it was literally, we went into a parking garage, didn't even make it into the elevator, just like handed him over to an attendant, and then the elevator doors closed. We're like, all right, what now? Like, anybody see the way we came in? Because nobody was paying attention. So weird. It's just so bizarre. Like, it was just weird. Like, did we just make this up on the spot, or is this like a real life protocol? Like, I have no clue what's happening. And that for me is when things just kind of started falling apart, because we got back to our firehouse in the Sprader van. And we're all, just exhausted, smelling of smoke and sweat and defeat. And the firehouse was beyond humming. That place was hopping. Like, not a single empty parking spot. Retired chiefs, current chiefs, soon-to-be chiefs. Everybody was there. SISM teams from, Jesus Christ, the entire Eastern Seaboard. PG was there, Balmer County, I think. And I don't even know. Tom Boyd had shown up, and he was polishing the metal plate on the light switches. And if you know Boyd, that's him. Like, that dude he's a machine. He never stops. And even the most minuscule details, he was out there. He's like, firehouse got to look good. Firehouse got to look good. And he's, spraying Windex into his little rag and polishing the plates. I'm like, what? Like, what Twilight Zone am I in? Like, bro, I was really, all I wanted to do was sit at the kitchen table and just that crappy old shitty wood and like bent legged table that we had for years. But we couldn't, because there were a billion SISM teams, a ton of brass, strangers, like everybody had taken over our firehouse. And I talked about it in the Things We All Carry podcast, how I was furious inside having to wait in line to use the bathroom that my crew and I had cleaned that morning, because there were a bunch of strangers in my firehouse. And nobody had the wherewithal. I mean, we could have gotten away with saying it, but nobody had the thought to be like, get out. Like, this is not your place. Get out. Like, we could have gotten away with telling a chief or above, get the fuck out. Like, you don't belong here. And Joe Connect and I kind of like came to the same agreement that if where it ever happened while we're still alive. Like, I told him, I'm like, I'm showing up to the firehouse with a machete in hand and I'm checking IDs. Be like, do you work here? No. Okay, you can wait in the park. Go across the street. Like, fuck off somewhere. Go to the union office, because the last thing these people need is 1,000 people in their personal sacred space and doing what, watching TV, drinking coffee, talk about the good old days, and hey, are you okay? I'm like, no, I'm not. I just lost a shift mate and I can't even decompress in my own firehouse. Why are you here? Andy Liebner was probably the only person that gets excluded from that, because he visited, but he was standing out by the sidewalk, like pretty close to the rock and the flagpoles. And he had been my pumps instructor a couple of years prior. So I went and I just said hi, and, Andy used to work for us. And he just said, listen, I'm here. I don't want to be in your space. Whatever you need. You all got my phone number. Let me know if you need anything right now. Cool. If not, you know how to get a hold of me. I'll answer day or night. Just keep me posted.
Yeah. He was one of us. He knew.
Yeah. And then he rolled out, and I wish everybody, a lot of people have said this, but I wish everybody had been like Andy and
had his intuition
and just left us alone, because I will always be bitter. Like, I don't care. Even the nicest people who were there that day, I'm just so bitter at them for not giving us that space. Yeah. And, by that point we just said, like, we were just mad. So we all went over to Corner Stable, whatever the one is in the Village Center. I think it's Corner Stable. Mm-hmm. I don't know. We managed to get a room to ourselves and had a couple beers. A couple people showed up, and I think I had to drive Adwell back to the hospital to pick up his car, and then I went home, and I remember I had talked to Michelle, and she was on her way over, and she found me. Thankfully, I left the door unlocked, but she found me just dead asleep on the couch, like still in a uniform. I think I showered at 10, but I didn't have like civilian clothes, so I was still in uniform. Like, I was still in my uniform with this bottle of moonshine that a friend of mine had made years prior that I had planned on downing, but I was just so exhausted that I was like cradling it. Like, I was just asleep with like a full bottle of like homebrew with the lid still on. And I think that put us at like nighttime. I remember the sheer exhaustion, the shell shock and the exhaustion.
I remember I was driving home and going back to music. I was like, let me put on just some feel good, like, beach rock reggae.
Yeah, probably not Dirty Heads, as we know.
Nope, not Dirty Heads. And but it was, I think, Stephen Marley, and an abnormally slow reggae song, and it's gonna be all right. For anybody that knows that song, like, it was such the first time I ever heard of it. It's a hard departure from that like genre of music, and it just grabbed my attention, and it was just very serendipitous. It was just super odd. I remember screenshotting it, be like, wow, this is fucking weird. And obviously people are calling and blowing up my phone. So I pull into the house, and it's summer, so the kids are, home, and we had a friend of a friend who was like watching our kids over the summer, and we told her, like, hey, my wife told her, like, listen, you can stay home today. We just kind of need some space. And I walk in, and my girls were like all dolled up in princess dresses and like running around the house. I remember thinking, I took a couple pictures. I remember, like, I'm probably going to want to remember this. I remember my wife prepped the girls before I'd gotten home to like kind of let them know we don't try to hide really much from them. Like, honesty is the best policy here. And one of them, my youngest one, comes up, and I think at the time they were like 4 and 2, so they were young. And my youngest daughter said is, hey, Daddy, is your friend hurt? I didn't really know what to say. I was like, yeah, he's hurt. He's not going to make it home. And just for a 2-year-old, they can't really process that. And she was, Daddy. And I'm like, oh man, here, what's going to be the next question? She's like, can you make me cereal? And I just kind of laughed because like I had to go back into dad mode at the same time, right? Like I'm a couple hours post the crazy event of my life and all right, yeah, I'm going to make my 2-year-old some cereal. And as I'm walking over through the kitchen, you know, my oldest, Harper, was like, Dad, is your friend going to come home? I remember thinking, and telling her like, no, he's not going to make it home. And she goes, Dad, yeah. Again, like, what's the next question going to be? She's like, you're standing in front of the TV. It's just the middle of summer, early morning. And you know, it kind of made me laugh. So, you know, go back into that mode. And I remember just every night when I'm putting the girls to bed for weeks, my girls kept asking like, why is your friend not home? What happened to him? Why are you crying? Like just every single night. And we'd be driving down the road like, Dad, like, yeah, what happened to your friend? And yeah, it was just like these weird questions, like a little innocent kid is at least aware enough of what's happening, what's going on. But, you know, my wife was awesome. She's like, I got the kids. I'm going to take care of stuff. Like, do what you need to do. And I remember a couple of things stuck in my mind. Like, one, I got to write all this down because I'm sure there's going to be a massive investigation. And I just need to know what it is, like unfiltered, get it on paper. Still hadn't showered at this point. And I also remember reading Dave Grossman's book on combat. When you have crazy events like that, you had two groups of people in the military, the ones that would go and drink their faces off and the ones that would go and like work out. And I remember thinking like, whatever I'm going through right now, I need to feel this and I don't need to dampen it with alcohol. I remember thinking, don't drink because hormonally, like I'm just jacked right now. I'm just going to throw a depressant on that. Like I need to feel this. I need to let it work its way out of my system. And I remember I didn't drink for like the entire week until we got to like Nate's actual funeral. But then I showered, I crashed. And then I know we woke up and we went to go see my family that night because they were obviously freaking out and asking for the story. And, you know, I can count on one hand how many times my dad has like hugged me and said, I love you, that kind of thing. And I remember going through that and reliving it from what I knew at the time. Seeing him upset was, you know, kind of rocked me. But that was the first couple minutes of just getting home. You're coming home to 3 kids.
Yeah, 2 at the time. And Kristen had arranged for my parents to have the kids, so things would be a little less chaotic when I walked in. And she asked what I needed, and I said I just need to go upstairs and lay down. On the way home, I had downloaded a voice recorder app. I knew that there was going to be investigations, and I knew that the more people started talking about it, the more it may affect exactly like what my freshest memory was. So whenever I got home, which was probably close to lunchtime, I laid in bed and pressed the voice recorder and just spoke it out from the time we got there, got off the engine until we were back out, you know, putting our stuff on back on the engine. Really glad that I did that, and then slept for a while. But later on, whenever we did the NIOSH interviews, I had that voice recording, so I was able to just play it for him and then answer a few questions.
Yeah.
So I was thankful that I had the forethought to be able to, like you said, take the notes while it was as fresh as I could remember all the intimate details, record it. And I think for that afternoon, I went over to my shop and was just hanging out, sitting in the chair, answering those phone calls, texts a little bit that people checking in. Yeah. And then went over to Rich's later because he had moved. Yeah. He was not far away, so we went over there to hang out for a little bit and kind of talk about how crazy it was. And actually, you called me while I was there to check in, see what I was up to. And I remember you saying, well, it's good you guys are together. So, but we had another day off. And then we were, going back into work on Wednesday. I was on Kelly Day that day.
Me too.
I already had a little trip planned with some outside the work buddies. We were going fishing and camping and whatever for a few days, but I went 7 and just to help things get back a little bit, get back on the right foot, and it was the normal early early relief BHX and drills and all the normal things that they were doing. And then we rode back down to Woodsgate and did the walkthrough. And that's when I had my first interview with the ATF.
I remember when I left that morning to go back into work, I remember my wife saying, you don't have to go in. Like, you can take time. You don't have to do this. You don't have to, it's okay to say, you need a day. And I remember thinking, I know, but we all need to be there for each other right now. And I remember, and I heard this from a lot of guys, that hug and that kiss goodbye that morning was
different.
Very different.
Yeah.
Very different for both of us. I remember we went in and talking about the SISM team. We're sitting there with the Captain Jimmy Love, and we're looking at each other like, we don't know these guys, and they're not going to talk. I think there were some guys from Montgomery County, and if it was you, if you're listening, we apologize. Hey, listen,
thanks for trying.
You can't be here. So I remember they sent them to another firehouse, and they listen, you have to have somebody. So I'm just we're literally ordering you to have somebody there, but we'll get somebody else. I think it was Doug Welsh, one of our own captains came in and was like, I'm just here. I'm going to sit in the back. If you need me, I'm here. But I remember we did kind of kick the guys out. Sorry, dude, it's not you. And I remember, the firehouse was buzzing, and we kept it as normal as we could, doing the checks, and you could see it was just that energy there of let's make this as normal as possible. And I know we all gave each other time to go around the table and talk and cry and say your own experience. Yeah. And I do applaud our department because they were bringing every company through, every station, every shift, so they could see the site. And as we knew it at that time, this is what happened. And I think it gave people a ton of awareness of what we went through, what the crews went through, and then just be able to match that up with the pictures. And I think it took care of a ton of rumor control, number one, but it got everybody on the same page so they could at least have some connection to it and experience it. But I do remember you going into the investigation, and we had been there for a little while, and we were all, I think, waiting on the wagon for you, and then a box comes out. And, you up on the wagon, you're off, but you came down with us. And I remember turning and looking at you. I remember you walking up the hill, and you were obviously very upset. And I'd known you for, 13, 15 years by that point.
Yeah.
And it's I've never seen Andy cry that hard.
Yeah.
And we go to the box, or we're starting to run down the road. I turn around and it's listen, we do not. I will put us in service and we'll go back to the firehouse. I remember you looking at me just through tears and joking, just fucking go. And I remember I felt 2 inches tall because I just put one of my best friends in a really bad situation. And I felt 2 inches small, and luckily we got put in service and we drove back.
Yeah.
But they asked you some tough questions.
They sure did. 3 or 4 people in a large vehicle. And they did ask some hard questions, and it was a difficult situation. Nothing breaking down and crying in front of strangers, and they offered to stop several times. But I wanted to be helpful and tell them everything I could to help. And we did it. Yeah.
they had you second guessing yourself?
There were some things that I was not ready to hear.
I remember that they asked questions and they had you second guess what you did.
Yeah.
And I remember you being really hard on yourself and not thinking.
I don't think it was, I don't mean to interrupt you, but they weren't really, it was me second guessing me.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't anything that they alluded other than the facts that they knew them at that point.
Right.
Those individuals had sat through the autopsy and they had some real information, and the facts of, from what I knew from my experience and then what they had to say, I had felt some, like there could have been some responsibility on me for some of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I just remember that being hard on you.
Yeah, and there were some things there that we did that, like, I was sure some things that I checked when we were in the hole, and some things that I was confident about, checking air and that sort of thing. When I was making my way to Nate, I'd pull my body breathing whip out, but at the time I saw that there was air in his tank and his BA was hooked up, so I made the decision not to hook up. In that moment, I felt the urgent need that we need to get out right now.
Yeah.
So we went. And you went, that seemed like that's what we did.
Yeah.
And then whenever later for that interview, I felt like maybe maybe I really wish I would have tried to give him some air, taking that time. The way things work out, the way the universe works, that 30, those seconds to minutes where the rest of that area collapsed, maybe if I had hooked up, maybe we would have all been bad spots. And maybe that gut feeling of we need to get out right now, maybe it had something to do with it. I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, there was some time there after that interview where I was like, man, I really wish. Yeah. And you can't do that. Yeah. You can't do the wish thing. You have to accept pretty darn quickly that things happened the way they happened and you weren't going to change it anymore. Mm-hmm. So as soon as you start selling yourself that and believing it, that, man, it happened the way it happened. Yeah. And now we're moving forward. That's all there was that we could do.
Yeah. And you're absolutely right. If we spent more time, it could have been different. And looking back with the autopsy reports, it took us a little while to get that information, but we found out later that, he was down there long enough, it wouldn't have affected anything. And in that twisted way, it kind of gave at least me some peace, knowing that what was done was done.
Yeah.
Unfortunately. I remember driving to something because on my 2 days off right after ATF had me come down and do the questioning, and I remember we were standing in the basement of the house looking at the steps to the crawl space. Actually, we didn't even know it was a crawl space yet. Thought it was like a sunken living room. And they were asking questions, and they were very nice and supportive, and we're just trying to put pieces together because nobody knew what the hell was going on. I just remember that was day one of a summer that rained incessantly.
Yeah.
Just the rain and the muck, and going back home and talking to my wife, I think I need to get back on the horse. And I remember telling her, I need to call the training academy and just put him through the fireground survival course, the confidence course at the end. I know guys that would do that for me. I think I need to get back in there and just make sure I don't freeze up. And she looked at me and was like, what the?
Yeah.
You've already done it.
Yeah.
She's like, you were just all the training that you've been doing and the stress inoculation stuff and the way you push each other and the workouts and the team building, everything that you all have done just validated what it is that you did.
It was a magic time.
Everything hit at the right point. And I remember that kind of rocked me back on my heels. And I don't mean to sound arrogant. It's, part of it was don't be ridiculous. You don't need to do a confidence course. And part of it was kind of the last 13 years, however long it was that we had spent doing little things every single day, culminated to this one moment.
Yeah.
And it did validate everything that we had been doing. So I remember that really checked me. Going back to the firehouse, even though the entire department had gone through, seeing the incident scene, being walked through, I remember just insane rumors like, oh, Nate died because he was strangled.
Oh, wow.
Jesus Christ.
Like I heard that one, like he got caught in wires and was strangled to death.
What?
Or I just like that. No.
Yeah.
Like, or people would come in and be like, well, this is the reason like this happened, or well, this, and like, and these are people that weren't even there.
Yeah.
And they're talking to guys from 7 and 10 who were there, hands on him. And I remember I tried to patiently educate anybody that I could, like, what you're going around all the firehouses saying is incorrect. This is the facts as we know them. And then the ICE report would come out, like all kinds of stuff would happen. And it was just amazing. Like we would still fill the voids with just like insane comments.
I'm glad you try to be all patient with them, because I took that approach with the first like 5 interactions, and then I just turned into a jerk, because there were people who were like, hey, listen, I wasn't there, but I'm like, so you're about to tell me exactly how you would have done it differently, huh? Like, yeah, why didn't you guys throw a ladder in there? Why didn't you follow the hose line? Why didn't... And...
I never let any of that in.
Oh, I didn't either.
I didn't let any of it in.
Yeah.
I just try to squash it.
Like you say, people don't know what they don't know.
Yeah.
And until it's you can say what you would do, but you don't really know.
Yeah, you just don't.
Because it hasn't been you.
Yeah.
And you don't know what you do.
There was one, he's like, why didn't you follow the hose line? And I was like, bro, I did. And I have never seen such, like, never in my life have I seen such just darkness. It was just a hose line into, I don't know what the fuck that was. Just an abyss.
And the exhaust.
Right.
Like just getting beat up, and then you're standing over top of a hole. Like what good is going to come
right,
out of that? I just throw a ladder down. Like that doesn't...
I had no idea where I was. Like it took until we got the fire marshal, like initial report. And I you guys were there with us. We were at the West Friendship classroom.
Yeah. And
they put in the floor plan, and they did like the dotted line where Nate went and where Tower 10 went. And I just looked at Joe. I'm like, we were inches from that hole.
Mm-hmm.
Like I had no clue how close we went to going in head first, because again, I couldn't see shit in front of me. My tick was dead. My integrated tick, I mean, I'm looking now at a 2-inch diagonal screen. That's what I'm using as my thermal imager in the darkest smoke I've ever been in my life. I'm just like, holy shit, dude. I had no idea how close we were to being in that bad spot.
We know of at least one guy like hands in the hole trying to reach down, do stuff. And I think that's when Joe was like, we're not going to accomplish anything here. Like we need to keep going.
Yeah. And there were even that, for me, that anger still remains. And there was a recruit a couple of years, like a year or so after, who was a 10 and who was in the watch office. And this is coming from me, because you guys have known me my whole life, but this dude is pretty mouthy. And even as a recruit, which for me to say is groundbreaking. And he was like, I just don't understand. If he went in and this happened and that happened, why didn't the crews that were there do X, Y, and Z? And I don't know what the statute of limitations is, but I was like, I'm going to give you 5 seconds to get out of this office, because we were in the watch office. I'm like, I have a keyboard in my hand that I'm happy to break over your head, and it's going to hurt you a lot. He's like, what? I'm like, I think we're down to like 3 seconds, bro. Like it was just rage. Like I remember the corners of my eyes were just like, I was getting into a tunnel vision. I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to kill this guy. Like I'm going to come back too, and I'm going to be strangling this dude.
Yeah,
and
there's a lot of that.
That part, because I knew in the back of my mind, I'm like, we are going to tear ourselves apart from the inside. I knew it. Like I already knew that Facebook was going to be blowing up with stupid stuff. I knew that when the report came out, there was going to be a lot of experts chiming in with the things that should have been, and experts who have spent the majority of their lives at retirement stations. And I just, like, I knew it, but even knowing it, it still get to me. I was just angry. Just like, dude, you weren't there. We were processing thousands of little cues every second with radios going, with multiple channels. Cam talked me out of getting the Mayday audio, because back then we could monitor all talk groups, right? Like if you had it on scan, your entire talk group was scanned, right? So I remember we had the lapel mics with the channel selector, and every time I would do it, I would reach down and I knew exactly where to push under my coat to get to the Bravo talk group, and I would always keep my lapel mic on 2, so then I would switch back to 1, and I knew it wasn't Bravo 1, because normally all our BS runs are on Alpha 2, right? So I switched to Bravo, switched to 1, I'm set. But I would always scan, because I always wanted to see what this dispatch channel was doing. And I'm kind of mad at my memory, because I heard Nate give his Mayday, because I was scanning. I heard him give out a Mayday, and he had a very distinctive voice. And I grabbed Joe. I was like, dude, that's Nate calling Mayday. He's like, are you sure? I'm like, for the most part, yeah. I'm like 80% sure it was him. By that point, Molly was giving her Mayday. And the try is, like, I really tried, and nobody would give me the audio. I'm like, it's not some morbid thing. It's, for me, a lot of things ended up being a massive question mark. Just like, play those old video games where, like, half the map is obscured and you can't see anything, you don't know what's there. That's a lot of what happened that night in the timeline of my memory. And I want to minimize that as much as possible. And it took a long conversation with Cam recently, like a month ago, because to this day, I'm angry that a lot of these folks up at dispatch, up at headquarters, they're like, hey, we have the audio. You can't have it. It's bad for you. I'm like, how the fuck do you know it's bad for me? Right? Mm-hmm. Like, I'm doing everything by the book. I'm talking to a therapist. I'm, getting back on the horse. I'm working. I'm doing all these things. Who are you to tell me what's good and what's bad for me? And that is something that I guess I've come to just realize that I'm just not. I don't know that I would serve anything. Maybe one day I'll listen to it. I don't know. But all this to open up the fact that I'm listening to you guys talk about your getting back to the firehouse and taking the time to appreciate what you did leading up to that point, and slowly getting back to it. I took a very dark path where I started just pinpointing every single bad thing that the department did. Because who am I going to lash out? Like, I can't lash out at my crew or you guys, because we did the best we could. And now because we got shafted a bunch of times, and that was instrumental in me just losing all faith in the higher ups, because they did some just fucked up things to us when we should have been grieving, when we should have been spending time with our families. They were like, hey, it's going to be great if you guys drive all the equipment from Howard to Havre de Grace, because you're his shift on the Friday for the Gen Pop viewing. And we're like, that was the only day of the week that we were going to have to spend time with our families. So, I had to pay a friend $20 to drive me down to Howard so I could drive 1 of 5 to Havre de Grace, so that George and Ryan and any of these guys didn't have to make the trek themselves. And I'm like, why couldn't you have, like, Fleet do it? Don't we have, like, a Fleet division? And we got to the church. It had been raining. So the guys from Joppa Magnolia brought down a bunch of brushes and buckets and, just stuff to detail the units. And the people from Fleet are walking in their Class A's, and they're making comments. Hey, you missed a spot. Joe looked at me. He's like, don't. Because I think I'm like, if I break this stick, I can stab him with it, or I can just beat him with it. Like I was going in my mind, I'm like, how violent can I get? How much? And it was that. Now we're really fast forwarding, but so Woodscape happened on Sunday, well, technically Monday morning, right? Then we had Tuesday off. We came back to work Wednesday. The like friends and family viewing, like the very intimate, was Thursday, so we were there for that. Friday was the day we were supposed to be off because that was when the whole world was coming to pay his respects. We couldn't be off that day, and Saturday was the memorial service and you know, everything, flyovers, the whole shebang. And I remember George was staying with me because my apartment was in Bel Air, like half a mile from Main Street, where everybody was hanging out. And everybody from the department, I mean, the majority of the people from the department left the viewing at like 4 or 5 in the afternoon. And what do firefighters do? They go drinking. Mm. And we left after, again, moving apparatus. I don't know why, but we like had to move apparatus back to, I don't know if we went back to Havre Grace or the church. I don't know. It got to a point that I'm like, I'm done. I'm like, I know how to make my way to my parents. I'm going to walk home. And they finally drove us back, and George and I decided we were going to go see what everybody was doing. And we got there at 11 o'clock, and they were, I think somebody was on his like 5th speech about "we got it from here, brother," like drunken speech. There were chiefs getting dragged out. Like I'm talking toes dragging on the floor as they got 2 people under their shoulders, dragging them out. They're so drunk. And it was one person went up to George and said, "How do you feel knowing that your shiftmate died?" And trust me, I pushed George's button so much. Like there were times that he's thrown things at me, and I have never seen him so angry. Like he started balling up a fist and reaching back. I had to like throw him into a bear hug, and I said, "We're leaving." Like we are. It was disgusting. It was a disgusting show of quote unquote fire department brotherhood, because to me it just solidified the fact that we can turn anything into a reason to just get sloppy drunk. Disrespectful. Like Otter was there, and Otter literally grabbed the bartender and said, "These guys are on my tab. They don't pay for a single thing." And I was like, "Dude, thank you, but we're leaving." Like we're gonna end up like getting arrested if we stay here, because it was just infuriating. It was, and I don't know, like that sent me down a very dark spiral, because it's like we're taking this opportunity to just drink. Have we learned nothing? Guys, like it happened to solid crews. Like imagine if it had happened to some non-high performing crews. It could have been way worse. Like we still lost one of our guys, and we had some of the best working that day. And instead of being like, "Hey, let's look within," now we just make it into a chance to drink and get drunk and make t-shirts and make stickers. And it was, I don't know, I still wrestle with that a lot.
Yeah, I remember I forgot about that night. We made the conscious effort to have, like, we kind of call it like family time. Like, I remember we all
had a meal.
We had a meal together. We went
very
to a
private
restaurant. It was very private. We didn't allow anybody in. It was just us with spouses. I remember our phone was blowing up like, "Hey, we want you guys over here. We want to make a speech." And it was incessant. Like, "No, you need to come over here right now. We want to do speeches and this and that." And like, we're having family time. We'll come over when we're ready. And it was really nice to detach and hang out together and spend time together.
We were our best support system.
We were, I don't know what kind of foresight we had, but to come away and kind of put up a little bit of a wall and just have us time. Like we insulated ourselves to protect ourselves, but we did it in such a way that we had the ability to connect and talk and decompress without the distractions of everything that's happened externally.
Brian opened his home up,
Yeah.
had us all up there stay for that night. And before that, I guess we went over there and got ready or whatever.
Martha Stewart, man. I think he has like apron on,
spotless,
crock pot meals. Like every
the
meal
top shelf was out.
Top shelf, bourbon connoisseur stuff was out. And that was another period. Like we kept focusing on having time for us to connect with each other,
just be together,
and with our wives, and
stay
just
close.
be together, and not funnel into that side of it. I think that was some of the first drinks I had, almost a week later.
Yeah. But even then, it was slow.
It was slow.
I remember when we did go over there, we just kind of were, you could tell our heads were up. Every now and then you would just see guys scan around to like check on each other, make eye contact. You're good.
Just give each other a look.
1 or 2 drinks, but that's just the way it worked out. I don't think we ever even talked about like, hey, these are some things we should do or not do. It was solemn enough that we never got in on the.
Yeah. And I think we saw what that other end was because
but when we got over there and saw that,
it was like, ooh. Yeah. There are people that just weren't doing well for many reasons.
You guys are so nice. I'm over here just like lobbing stones at these folks. And I mean, I hope they listen. And
no, I think that's.
Everybody has a story and the way they deal with it.
Yeah.
That's just what worked for us.
Yeah. I think for the people that weren't there, and we saw this at 7, I mean, in the wake of it, we saw a lot of people when they got detailed into 7, they'd call out sick. Or
we saw that too.
There were a lot of people that as these stories came out of what we had to go through, I think, and I don't mean to assume too much, but I think they realized like this job is what people have claimed it can be. Yeah. And there are people that weren't there that wanted to be there and struggle with that. I think there are people that weren't there and I've had people say, I don't know, I don't think I know I could not have done what the crews there did. And I struggle with that. And people struggle in their own ways. And I think that it gave an opportunity for reflection, but some of that reflection may not have been in the healthiest ways. So what better way to cope than with alcohol and making speeches and making T-shirts? And those are all fine when tempered appropriately.
Yeah.
But we had, in the very uncanny way, I think we had an opportunity to like take care of each other in a way that we didn't realize we were doing, but we knew it felt right. And I think it kept us even closer. We weren't numb to things. We made a conscious or maybe even unconscious effort to feel the feels and talk it out and just have that connection. And I think we all struggled in our own ways, but we fared better because we knew we had each other.
That's what it was. We had each other.
So the next day the funeral comes, and I remember for a lot of people was kind of more like pomp and circumstance, right? We're all in Class A's, and Station 10, like you all, I think were already like seated before the procession started, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yeah, because we brought him in, from the funeral home was in Havre de Grace, this tiny little structure with very creaky wooden floors. And along with, our honor guard, Harford County's honor guard, and we put 4 guys on 101, escorting Nate. Came down to the church in, I guess that's technically Joppa area. And yeah, by the time everybody just kind of filed in, we were already pretty much said, that is when a lot of the blacking out starts, because I can't tell you what happened I can tell you what happened on the very private, intimate viewing that we had Thursday, but then Friday was a lot of people, and then Saturday was a ton of people. It was just, I'm like, dude, I don't want to wear this Class A ever again. I just want to go hang out with my friends and chill. I just want to sleep.
I remember so you all already in there.
Yeah.
We're getting ready to start this massive, almost statewide funeral, like governors there, everybody. And they're like, hey, Station 7 lead the procession in to this massive auditorium. So I remember Captain Love and I were the officers of 7. We'll start the procession. So we're just sitting there, standing at the doors, waiting to get the green light. And I remember the honor guard, I think it was Dylan Murray, comes out holding Nate's youngest kid. And remember, their MSLS have 5 kids.
Yeah.
3 of their own. And the youngest comes out and he's on his hip. He comes out the doors and I'm thinking like, hey, we're good. Like, we're going to lead it in. It's going to be fine. And they stop right in front of us and they start looking around. And his youngest kid, I don't remember how old he was at the time, 2 or 3 maybe. And he goes, hey, that's Daddy's fire truck.
Oh,
like, let's go. I want to go see Daddy. And I remember Captain and I, like, our chins hit our chest and we lost it. Kids, always freaking get me, man.
Yeah.
And when he says, like, I want to see Daddy, show me Daddy's fire truck. All right. And he was awesome. He's like, yeah, let's go see Dad. Man, that gutted me walking in there. And then, we lead it in, the processions happen and all that. And then, I know on the back end, they line up. They had us all line up. It was that weird couple hours of no rain and full sun in the middle of summer, and people are dropping left and right. And to start it off, I remember they had like a procession for the wives. And
Yep.
I think it was like a show of respect. And I remember a couple of our wives, just strong, independent, capable women, were like, fuck that. You will not put me on display. I'll be back here. Do what you need to do. This is for him. Nice gesture, but no thanks. And people were falling out left and right. And then you get to the wake. I remember just being, I remember we stood off to the side again.
Yeah.
We did our own thing. All kinds of people just hammered drunk, like arm around the shoulder. Like, you guys did a great job. You did what you could or whatever. And it was nice that people were thinking of us and were listening and paying attention, but, it was just a weird spot to be in.
Wasn't sure how I felt about that yet when people would say that.
Yeah.
I don't remember a lot of the funeral.
Yeah.
I think it's that defense mechanism.
Oh, yeah. For sure.
I think I remember feeling that funerals were kind of designed to make you cry, to let that feeling be real and to let a little of it out. And it weighed on me. We sat behind 10.
Yeah.
And 10's wives.
Yeah.
Their significant, all the significant others. And that weighed on me.
Yeah.
Seeing them.
I remember some of the wives, I think it was Kristen Schultz, was like, she was handing me tissues. We're all sitting there crying together and she's just like one row back, just like feeding me tissues for a couple of times.
Dude, going back to the people falling out, that was probably one of the funniest things. And we try to find the most humor in that whole situation, because that's all that we could do. And there were some moments like at the viewing for friends and family only. Again, this like old funeral home, rickety wooden floors, and we're all standing there. And God bless Coleman. I don't know what he had for lunch. He was a little gassy. And he let one out, like when at the best time when it was all just quiet, and this thing just like makes its tooting sound. And I got George on one side, Glenn on the other, and we're dumb to begin with, and we just make each other laugh. And Coleman just goes, "Whoops." And I think George leaned over, was like, "Oh, ain't as tight as it used to, huh?" And it was over. Like there were people, like doors flew open, and we came out crying with laughter. And I remember like there were some citizen people looking like, "Are you guys okay?" I'm like, this is the first time I've laughed in like a week. And there's a lot of emotion that's going to come out. And then fast forward to when we were, we put Ryan and somebody else up top on the engine. George and I were standing on the tailboard, and we're watching, and you just see people's not even people, just Class A hats, and suddenly a hole in the crowd. and then a handful of people converge and somebody's legs get dragged out. Like, it was just,
people were literally getting drugged out.
They were dropping left. It was kind of, I mean, I feel bad for them, but at the time you're just like, oh my God, this is chaos. This is mayhem. And I'm just like, we're trying to place bets. We're like, hey, which part of the crowd do you think is going to fall out next? And then it wasn't the one you expect. You're like, damn it.
It wasn't too long after that, next shift or two, Celeste comes, or we hear that Celeste wants to come talk to Seven.
I have a story about this. Go ahead.
Yeah. And we didn't know what it was going to be. We just thought, okay, she wants to come talk to Station 7. We pulled her husband out.
I was sweating.
And we thought we'd sit at the kitchen table and everything was going to be fine. She'd have some questions for us. And I remember some of like the union and family reps came a little earlier. I was like, hey man, so like, what's up? What should we expect? And the one guy was like, oh, she's going to ask you what happened. She wants to know like how you found him, what position he was in. Did he have air? Did he not have air? Like, she's going to ask you hard questions. So buckle up. And I remember talking to Captain, I was like, we cannot do this with the whole shift. We have to do this. Yeah. And I remember we went into like the TV room and we kind of had our little intimate thing and she asked hard questions.
Yeah.
And I get it from her point. She wants to know what the hell happened to her husband.
Yeah.
So that was pretty emotional and pretty stressful. And I tried to be as honest as I could. I tried not to assume too much because, we still didn't have answers.
Yeah.
Just remember coming out and then like going right back into immediately like running calls and going in that.
I was nervous that day. We knew she was coming and didn't know what to expect. And you guys didn't tell us beforehand that it was just going to be you two.
Mm.
So when you took her in there, like, and closed the door, I was like, oh, wow. Like, you just sheltered us from that. And I was driving on the wagon that day on 71.
Yeah.
And after you guys came out, we were running calls. And we ran a medical down off Harmel, Cedar Lane. Mm-hmm. And we were coming out, pulled the wagon over. I said, man, that was some big boy shit.
I remember that.
To shoulder that and step up and have the forethought to save us all from having that exposure, that experience, that memory, good or bad, because we didn't know what was coming. But I was super duper impressed with you and Captain Love that day.
Thank you.
And you never told me, and you haven't to this day, what was said there, and you've never spoken about. Man, that's a big deal. Appreciate that.
Thank you. It was, I did most of the talking, and it was just hard questions.
Not asking.
No, it's okay. She wanted to know what happened. Yeah. She wanted to know what he looked like. She wanted to know the things that other people were going to tell her.
That was just a real big deal. I still feel that way.
Yeah, that was a weird one. And I mean, just on the heels of that, like just constant funerals, retirees coming through and just left, right. And there were some times when there were certain individuals that were very checked out and were like, all right, well, if you're going to do this, you need to use your own leave. And like, it was very inconsistent. It was very weird there for a while about which ones we were going to, which ones we weren't. And then got to points of like 10 and 7 would talk to each other like, hey, you doing this one? Are you going to this one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we tried to be as supportive as possible to the family. And it just got to the point where like, we're starting to pour from an empty cup. It's going to be a little too much. And I love bagpipes.
Oh boy.
And
not anymore.
And it's also getting to be a little too much. And so it got to the point to where like we had to bow out. It was taking a toll. And I can't like stress enough how impressed I am by Celeste and the family, because they were doing it at an insane pace, constant, being pulled in so many different directions. And there's, you know, a dozen grown-ass men who are like, yeah, we need to sit this one out.
Yeah.
Dude, she is a rock star, and I've told her, and I will always feel this way. She is just an absolute machine for doing that. Because if somebody ever had the carte blanche to be like, no, I'm not doing that, it's her.
Yeah.
And the fact that, and she and I talked about it, I'm like, from our end, it felt like they were parading her as some sort of celebrity. Everybody, I was present for a conversation where Tebow was like, hey, this politician, like, I don't remember who it was. So important that I forgot who it was. They want to talk to you. And I pulled Tebow aside later. I'm like, why? Why can't just they let her be? Like, what's this politician going to do? Nothing. Nothing. Like, she's in the middle of grieving. Like, she doesn't need to be some sort of like political showpiece.
Yeah.
For whatever reason. I mean, I can only imagine how saturated it got with all the memorial services. Like, hell, I didn't even want to go to Colorado. Like,
yeah,
because I knew, I'm like, this is more of the same thing. Like Crestlawn, when we did that one, I was just like, I don't.
Yeah, and the kids were there.
Yeah.
And again, like the kids, his one daughter went up for one of them because she wanted to like present something, like she made something or something for her dad that they could keep in like a vessel. And I remember like just being gutted again because, you know, here comes the daughter, just strong as her mom.
And a spitting image.
Spitting image. Yeah. God, man. And I mean, you want to see, you know, 30 grown men cry as soon as those kids get involved, man. Like, we were done.
Yeah.
Their strength is unreal.
We did a lot, though.
It was a lot.
We did a lot.
It was a crazy pace. I forgot, not too long after my oldest was turning 5, and both sides of our family were at our house, and we're all close. And, you know, I'm one of 4, my wife's one of 3, girlfriends' wives were all there, grandparents, and I'm grilling. And when I come into the kitchen and the girls are running around and having a good time, and everybody's playing games with each other, and everybody's happy and together. And I remember sitting in my kitchen and just looking over my shoulders like, Celeste is at home, a husband, without the father. And I broke down in my kitchen.
Yeah.
I remember feeling so guilty that I am here getting to experience this and be with my kids, and she's at home without that. I remember I went upstairs and I got in a good cry, came back down, washed my face, and went back to grilling. And I didn't tell anybody about that for probably at least a year. And then enough time had gone by where people are starting to push. I had a couple of close friends like, hey, what you all went through was pretty insane. Like, you need to educate people on this. Like, put your name in for FDIC, whatever. I was a little resistant at first, but I started just kind of throwing a presentation together and getting ready for it and seeing if they would even accept it. And I had the opportunity to talk about like our experience and do my presentation for the RIT operation at a Maryland Chiefs conference. And I found out right before I get there that Celeste and Mark Falkenham's wife were going to be there. And so I go through the incident. She was able to see some videos that she hadn't seen before, provided some more context. And I talked about my experiences and just told a couple of those stories where I kind of broke down with my family. And I remember thinking like, how dare I talk about my experiences and my times when I felt weak in front of the 2 widows that lost their husbands in the line of duty. And I remember them coming up to me afterwards. I'm like, here we go. You know, I remember feeling 2 inches tall, and I'm getting ready for her to be like, how the fuck dare you? And they both gave me a hug and thanked me. That like And I think she did something effective like, sometimes we forget that you guys struggled too, and you got stuff going on at home. So thank you. And I also had a picture of me and Nate from when we were riding together one day, and she's like, I hadn't seen that picture before, and like that smile that he had. So thank you for that. And it totally like, oh my God, she's reasonable. Like she's just an awesome person. And, it put me at ease, but I was terrified, absolutely terrified.
Yeah, she's the embodiment of grace. That's the best way I can put it. She's, God, like.
You mentioned Colorado though.
Yeah.
So IAFF Memorial in Colorado Springs. Yep. And so, we all go. And I was super thankful for you because we got out and we hiked and we did all the sightseeing and we moved. The amount of stuff that we did in like a 72-hour period was just insane. Right?
I just want the record to show that we hiked the Manitou Incline before you guys. So
I think we have the land speed record though for firefighters.
It's a shock. George was just trying to show off, and he's like sprinting up the hill. I'm like, it's gonna catch up to him. It's gonna catch up. He's like, Tej, I can't breathe. I'm like, I told you we're at altitude, idiot.
So I actually, like an idiot, I forgot my pants.
I forgot
my Class A pants.
Oh, that's right.
From all the
forgot about that
freaking funeral, the stuff, and all the wakes and memorials. And Zolik had a connection in Colorado Springs.
That dude knows everybody.
And literally pulled up to the hotel like an hour before, like, here's some pants.
And they didn't come in like lights and sirens?
They fit better than my own pants. Like, what are the chances? This guy was phenomenal. I think he's assistant chief out there somewhere. So totally saved me. And then, we do the funeral. And I remember I think that's when I really first started, I tied one on the night before, like just sweating Guinness and whiskey. And we do the incline.
Yeah.
And we get to the top. And I remember, feeling like that was closure for us. It was me, you, and Brian. We got to the top. And I think it was that period of struggle and getting to the top of a literal and metaphorical mountain. We had the closure of the memorial and we get to the top. And I remember we were just kind of like arm in arm. And I feel like a weight was lifted off of our shoulders in that moment. I remember from that moment on how impactful that was. And it was a couple months later, my wife had a little trip. We were going to Shenandoah, and I remember cresting over this one hill, and as soon as I saw the mountain, I just started crying. Because I remember thinking that feeling I got when just being in nature, but then also just like getting to the top of these mountains and struggling and knowing that it's okay. It changed me. Like that climb changed me.
Yeah. It was different after that. And there's something in the struggle.
Yeah.
Something that you can find, especially with friends, us, doing hard things together. You go places sometimes spiritually. It brings it out or you find it. I think we all felt it there.
Yeah.
And we called Drini on our way back down.
Yeah. So you could be part of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's where Colorado Springs is where the bagpipes happen. I don't think I've heard one since. And I'll choose that all the time. I just don't show up or tune it out. But I can't do bagpipes anymore.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know many that can from 7 or 10. Yeah.
I don't like memorial services. I'll do as much as I can behind the scenes. I remember when Kelsey, Paul, and Kenny got killed earlier this year. I'm like, nope, I'm not. I'll do what I can. I'll support from afar, but I can't do the uniforms, the bagpipes, the drinking, the speeches. I'm kind of jealous that you guys got that mountain closure because I'm still looking for that one moment, and I don't think it's going to be that one moment. I think it's just going to be, your boy Jocko talks about it, the waves.
Yeah.
You learn how to ride them a little bit better. They still come, just not as often, and you kind of like get used to them. And selfishly, I was kind of hoping it was going to be an it moment, seeing the mountain, seeing the light, the nature. I've bounced around. I remember I threw myself into work, as I feel most of us did. Michelle actually had a talk with me. She's like, dude, you've gone to these hazmat bomb school, like rad new class. You've gone to all of these like 3 times a year. Like, what are you doing? Like, you're sacrificing your summers, your time off. Like, what on earth? I think that year I spent 2 weeks at the NFA doing chemistry hazmat class. Like, bitter winter, so stupid cold. And every night I would just be hanging out there by the memorial, just kind of like looking. I'm like, is there going to be an epiphany? Is there like what? I went to Colorado on a whim. I went to see OAR just by myself. I'm like, I need to. I need to. I went to Red Rocks, made some friends who actually, they handed me a deck of cards. I'm like, what the hell? They're like, you've never been to an OAR concert, have you? I'm like, apparently I haven't been doing it the right way, because when they played Crazy Game of Poker, it was like the energy of that place, just everybody just launching decks of cards into the air, and you just see random cards fluttering down. But I made it a point to make the drive from Denver to the Springs and just look at the memorial. Just me and some random homeless dude pooping behind the bushes, which Colorado, I always find the pooping homeless dudes in Colorado. Every time I go there, I found one in Pueblo, found one in Colorado Springs. I'm like, Christ, dude. And same thing with like the Annapolis one. I just kind of like, I can't do the official stuff. I just try to go and be like, Annapolis kind of hit me hard, because then I started recognizing more and more names. I'm like, fuck, dude.
Yeah.
Like, I hate the fact that I know so many of the people here.
You do this long enough, it just,
yeah.
You know, and this is nothing against military at all. Like, let's say you do your average 4 and out. They have done amazing things for themselves, for this country. Like, my love runs deep. Sometimes it might be a 4 and out. You know, we accumulate some of these things that we have 20, 25, 30 plus years, and you do start to recognize those names.
Yeah.
I know you talk about the Band of Brothers podcast and Jocko.
I'm a big one for that.
Yeah. Just talk on that for a minute.
Well, Woodscape consumed me for years. I thought about it all the time, every day. And I thought I was pretty well back to a pretty good order of life, I guess, but I never really, it took a while. And I struggled ever since then, but for 2 years it was probably worse. First 2. And I think I didn't seek help. I didn't have a therapist. I should have. I wish I would have. And for anybody listening, you should jump right on that. I thought for a long time about writing notes or keeping a journal, and I should have done that. It was probably 2.5, 3 years before I started writing. And then I sat down for a couple days and put 20, 30 pages down, and that made a huge difference for me. But the first big difference for me came when our dear friend Brian was listening to a podcast, Jocko, I think number 17. And right around, I think, the hour and 14-minute mark, it's a Band of Brothers podcast, but he starts kind of talking, I think almost going off script, sending a message to the veterans. And I listened to it. I listened to it a ton, wrote it, many times. And it gave me the words that I couldn't find to get some of that closure or to express my feelings about it. And it was, I think that was 2.5 years later, whenever he sent that out. And immediately I felt that weight. That was the first weight lifted off the shoulders for me. But I would recommend, I think those words are not nearly as well known as they should be for people that have had events or things that have left scars. I have it pulled up here. It's paraphrased.
Yeah, I think we will, like, if we can, we'll try to throw it on the end of this so people can hear it.
Yeah.
But if you paraphrase it for us.
Well, I actually have it queued up in my podcast thing, but it more or less says that if you're having one of those dark days, it's okay. It's okay to feel that darkness and to remember it and miss it, hate it, and love it. And it's okay to wish it never happened, and at the same time to wish it never stopped. And it's okay to want to take it all back, and at the same time to want to do it all again. And if you've got it in your mind that you think that nobody understands, it's okay. They don't. But you do. You know the darkness, but more important than that, you know good. You know light, and you know laughter and love better than anyone. So embrace it. Own it. Don't look away from it. Don't bury it in booze or pills. Live your life. Embrace it with physical activity and nature, friendships, music, good times, you know. I encourage everybody to listen to that. And, yeah, it's about moving forward. And that's, I went from like 50%. I kind of always rated myself like a self-assessment, as like a percentage. Like if I felt like I was 50% back to more or less normal or who I was before Woodscape, I probably jumped up to like 80% just hearing that.
Yeah.
Which is the power of words.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's music or a song or the ability to write something down, or simply a key conversation with somebody. Not long after that, a few months after Brian sent us that, training was detailed out to 4. And Woodscape didn't come up all day.
Because you had left 7 and you were now
and
at 4.
I was at 4.
Yeah.
And it didn't come up all day. And I think that, like, you don't always want to be that guy that brings it up, because you never know your buddy. If he's in a good headspace that day, you don't want to be the guy to, like, bring it up and kind of ruin that for him. But we went down to the grill, Old 4, to cook dinner. And they came up there and he asked how I was doing. And more or less said, it's been hard. And man, I really miss the guys from 7. And I remember saying to him that, like, everything that had happened in life pretty much to that point put us there for that. You know, when we got hired, or the activities we did growing up, or the choices we made, or what were made for us. Missed promotions, transfers that you didn't ask for. You never really know why things are happening, you know. Half the reason I even ended up at 7 was because John was in the hospital for 3 months when he was born. When I came back for a few months, I tried to stick out the paramedic thing, but I really struggled with it, so I let it go. And a few days later, I was transferred to 7A. If John wouldn't have been in the hospital, would I have been there for that? Right. You know, so sometimes things happen and you don't know why. If you're fortunate, you get to look back and see kind of why things came together the way they did sometimes, or why, if it happened, if it didn't seem like it made sense at the time, or it wasn't what you wanted. But everything that had happened at that point put us there for that. Such a time as this. And, you know, we got to pick up and move forward, and got a lot of life to live after that. So where are we going to go, and what are we going to do? But so that was just one of those conversations that made another big jump in that recovery. Just that communication, you know, I wish we would have talked about it more. I think instead of being scared to bring it up, man, we should have just talked about it.
Yeah.
You know, and I would encourage people, if you're thinking about it, talk to me about it, because I'm probably thinking about it too.
Yeah.
You know, I sent you that thing, a message on the 3rd anniversary, because nobody was talking about it. And I'm like, I don't want to be that guy, but if you're having a hard day, I am, so call me. Like, and you did call, and we did have a talk about that and cry and let a little more out and move forward a little more.
Yeah, the 2nd anniversary wasn't bad. Like, there were some moments, and we had talked to that. For a couple of years, you think about it every single day. And I probably at one time or another, like every single day for the first year or two, I would get misty-eyed over something.
Yeah.
Sometimes it was good. Sometimes it was bad. Sometimes it was thankful. Sometimes it was maybe feeling a little defeat. And then over time, we got to the point where we both actually were like, hey, I went 24 hours without thinking about it.
I remember the very first time was a month shy of 3 years when I was back at 7.
Yeah.
And I came to you, and a project at home so consumed my thoughts. I came to work the next day, and I was like, hey, buddy, I think I didn't think about yesterday for the first time.
Yeah.
You know, 3 years.
Yeah.
Just to give an idea of, you know.
But like you said, with the podcast and with other people that have experienced this, it never truly leaves. It changes in degree or severity.
Yeah, kind of what TJ touched on there about those waves of emotion decreasing in frequency and amplitude over time, but they never go away. Mm-hmm. And it was one of the other Jocko podcasts where he talked about, he had an old World War II veteran in there, 95 years old, and broke down, crying about the buddies that he lost 50 years ago, you know? And that's when even Jocko realized it in himself that, this is never going to go away. So,
yeah.
But we do have a responsibility to live also, and carry on and, you know, make more memories and do more things together, you know?
Yeah, you really helped me on that one anniversary. Because I remember, I think we had worked out together that morning. And I remember thinking the entire time, like, we should do something. We should go out. We should get coffee. We should do this and do that.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking, I don't want to be a burden. Like, I don't want to like hijack these people's day, you know? And so I left, and I remember feeling like there was this weird buildup, and I'm thinking like, it's been a few years now. Like, I'm doing better. Like, why? And not that I was ever like super struggling, but it was just like, this one's getting me for some reason. I don't understand why. And I remember you had felt it. And I remember like, I don't remember who called who. I thought you had called me.
Yeah, whatever.
But you remember like I could feel the energy.
Yeah.
I can tell you're off. Are you okay? And I remember I was in my driveway, and I was crying hard enough I couldn't talk to you.
Yeah, I remember that. That was number 3.
I was 3.
Yeah.
And I just didn't understand why.
That was the whole thing.
I think a lot of it was, you just don't know when it's going to come. And there was a lack of connection, I think. Like, I really wanted to be with my guys. And in an effort to like not get in anybody's way, I started like internalizing and not talking to people. And I was like, no, I don't want to bother them, this or that. And
everybody just wants to be together.
Yeah.
What surprised me about number 3 was that it snuck up on me. I thought I was okay. And then I realized that like in June or the beginning of July, like I was fidgety. My heart was skipping beats, or it was just fast all the time. I wasn't sleeping. And really, I thought it was just normal life things that was happening at the time. Like, and then all of a sudden one day I'm like 2.5 hours in on the lawnmower, and there's nobody around, and I'm just crying in the middle of nowhere for no reason. And then it dawned on me like, oh, it's anniversary time.
Yeah.
This is what's coming. And then that's when I realized that the after effects of dealing with something like this, and I don't really agree with putting labels on things, so I'm not going to, but it affects you physically, and it's not just a mental thing after that.
Yeah.
You can see that physical, man, the catecholamine dump on the 3rd anniversary was not far off of the original, the incident itself. And what I felt for a few days after that, man, it took me 2 weeks to get my head decent after the 3rd anniversary.
Yeah.
That's where we were,
Yeah.
I should have started talking to somebody sooner.
Yeah. I remember I was just super thankful that you had reached out and were aware enough that I was having a tough time and checking in. And then it was after that conversation, I was like, it is going to be okay. And people are paying attention, and people are like, no, like there's still a little bit of struggle there.
And it's not just me.
And it's not
just
me.
you,
Yeah. I remember like nasal breathing. Like I would get like a little bit of anxiousness in my chest, and like I could do all kinds of stuff, but like long nasal breathing and doing like box style breathing was one of the things that helped like kick it. And obviously going back to the struggle of like that constant movement and getting in the gym, doing the hard work. And then maybe if there's the physical side, and then the not physical, more intellectual side of just talking about it and not letting it sit.
Yeah.
One of super powerful quote, I think it was Tim Ferriss, and it might have been Jocko talking about it again, was men are really good at bearing it down, right? Like we don't talk about it, we push it down. And the quote is like, I'm paraphrasing, but all these things that we push down, we think we're hiding, but little did we know that it was a seed and it grew. And is that the shade that we want to live under? Is these things that we're not talking and getting out, are those going to be the things that are going to manifest themselves into something that's going to be disastrous longer on or longer down the road?
Yeah. That was me. We were in the year 4 before I got low enough to make that phone call. I called Brian. I said, hey, buddy, I need to talk to somebody. He gave me the name of somebody, and that was this year, bud. We're sitting here today. Like, it wasn't that long ago.
Yeah.
April, May, June, something like that. Yeah. So.
Yeah, same. I think the three of us in the room are trying to do things to have that self-improvement and talk to somebody.
And it's interesting to sometimes look back and see, like, I try to eat pretty clean, and I try to do a fair amount of exercise, and we worked out hard before Woodscape. And I'm still here, like, at the level of, managing this that I am. Like, where would I be if I wasn't eating clean? If I would have decided to start taking a drink, or if I would have quit exercising, thinking the likelihood of me ever having to do something like that again at work is a very small percent, but like, so I'm gonna take today off. Like, I can't do that. Like, where would we be today, or where would I be today if we weren't doing some of those basic discipline things to just maintain?
Yeah. And you're not doing it to the detriment where you're burning yourself out or not healing.
Yeah, no,
but constant little bits of improvement, maybe change the scale or intensity, but you're doing things to consistently move, because if you don't move, we know that end, and it's not a healthy one. Yeah.
Rolling stone gathers no moss. Yeah. So you got to keep moving. But, that came to a head for me. Sorry.
No, please.
I think after you had left 7, you were filling in at safety car, I think one day when I was working at 9, and man, I was a wreck. I think we talked about it a little bit, maybe at that picnic table they had going on in the engine bay there. I really thought that people lost sleep over things like this at night, from like the way they, maybe they regretted their actions, or maybe they wish they'd done something or whatever. Like we said earlier, I came to terms pretty quickly with like the way things played out. But it still weighed on me just huge. To the point where, like, I said something to you that day that it didn't, I don't think it hit you the way I intended it to, but I said something like, you've kept me alive more times than you know. And you thought that we were talking about that night. Oh. I didn't really have a ton of regrets after that, the way we did that, but I still thought about ending things in the years after. Woodscape. An uncontrolled kind of thing. And every time that, like, those thoughts would creep into my mind, I would think about, like, how unfair it would be for me to be going through that, and for me to show up and work with you every day, and for you to not have any idea of where I'm at, and how that would be absolutely unfair, like, and the pain that would cause you to, if I were to do that, you know. I got to the point where I knew the gun, where it would be, who I would write letters to, and what they'd say. And it almost got to feel like there was a couple people that I just knew, even though that, like, my mind was going there, I just knew that I could not let them down like that. Not to mention, I felt like if I would have done that, people would be like, holy shit, like, if Andy Hoffman did that, like, what's it gonna do to me? But it scared me the day before we sat down at 9 that day, where it almost felt like a destiny thing, or like it was inevitable. And I got scared. And that's when I knew I had to reach out and, like, get that person. But, man, buddy, there were times when I just didn't want to let you down.
It definitely goes both ways.
And that's all I have to say about it.
That's it? Jesus.
No.
We're
having real talk now.
Yeah, man, we went there.
But
I remember that day, and I remember talking to Jess and being scared. Like, one of the strongest guys I know, is really struggling. You know,
Yeah.
You're one of the strongest, like, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, man I know. And to see you struggle, scared me. And I think there was almost a little bit of a trauma response. Like, I think I even blocks part of that out. And I just remember, that core group of us, if anything happened to any one of us, like, it absolutely would kill me.
Yeah.
Like, that would
Who
destroy
am I
me.
that I let you get there?
Yeah. And there's so many times that I can look back on and being like, it's so easy to get in the grind and routine of things, of doing the work around the house, and, got to get the kids here and there, and I got to empty the dishwasher, and I got this errand to run. And so often I look back on some of those days and, like, none of this shit matters.
Oh my gosh.
There's a Micah Fink episode where, for, like, at hour 2, he just talks about, like, none of this dumb shit matters. Like, call that person that you care about. Go hike that mountain. Go eat the good food. Like, check in on your buddy and make sure they're doing okay. That load of laundry can sit there. Like, it doesn't fucking matter. Like, those errands you got to run. And there's so often that I've regretted, like, I get in the routine and my to-do list, and I got to get all these things done, and I have to accomplish this or that. And at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Like, checking in on you and checking in on you. That's, and connecting and saying, hey, let's go out for coffee.
Yeah.
Let's go grab dinner. Let's get lunch. Let's go spend a weekend in West Virginia and go climb a mountain.
Man, I love that.
Those are the things that keep us alive.
Putting back in that cup.
And give us a cup to pour from.
Yeah. And it felt selfish to let me try to make myself a priority now and then to try to put something in that cup.
Yeah.
But man, if you want to be good for your significant others and your kids and your friends, if you got to put, you got to do something for you a little bit here and there to feed your soul so you can give everybody a better version or the best version of what you got. Yeah. You got to get a little out of it somewhere.
Yeah.
But
it took me a long time to figure that out.
It felt selfish and
it's not.
Yeah, it's not. Get something on the calendar, a little adventure, a little nature.
Yeah.
And have something to look forward to.
I remember the reason I was at 9 was because I put my name in the hat for captain. And I did put a lot of eggs in one basket, and I knew that. And I won't even get into that side of it. I remember driving to my interview, and I remember texting. We have our little text thread with me, you, Dreamy, and Brian, and I'm like, hey, guys, I'm really feeling all over this thing. Like, because I was so short for so long, like it's not what I wanted. But I was like, you know what? I'm going to put some eggs in one basket, and I'm going to see what I can make happen. And the closer I got to headquarters for my interview, the pressure in my chest.
Yeah.
And I remember I got to headquarters, and Brian called me. He's like, "Are you okay?" And I couldn't talk because I was crying so hard in the parking lot of headquarters. It's like, I'm about to interview for a rank that I could lose you guys. Chances are good I'm gonna lose every bit of connection and trust I have, and I'm gonna look back in whatever front seat I'm riding in, and I'm not gonna see the guys that I trust. And I know that's part of this job, but I'm like almost making a conscious effort to chuck the deuces and lose the best thing that I've ever had happen to me. And I remember he talked me through it, and he brought me down, and I know we talked about like leadership and connection and like, chance opportunities and things that are going to happen that you'll never know about. And, I won't tell him to his face, but I love him to death, and he's very wise, and it brought me down. But I remember it completely rocked me, and knowing that I'm going through motions to what felt like lose everyone at 7.
Lose that. Yeah.
Lose that. Sometimes I still second guess myself, but you're right. That, maybe one of those chance moments was us coming back together at 9.
Yeah.
And have you say that.
And like you're going through now, sometimes you just gotta kind of trust the universe is working when it's working for you. It's got something in mind.
Yeah.
Something bigger that you can't even imagine. You don't know.
That was 2018.
Yeah.
So we're coming into our 5th year.
Yeah.
It's weird. I think we're all trying to do things to self-improve with, like, whether it be therapy, the work, the workouts. I know it's made me a deeper, fuller person, and it's done amazing things for me. And not just work. Like, my wife and I really struggled, and not necessarily because of work stuff. Like, we had our own things going on, and it made us so much stronger, and has given us skills to work through these things, which I've been able to bring into work and work through things and be able to connect to people differently. But it is weird. I think that enough time has passed where there are some people that are absolutely still holding up their end of the bargain. And I feel like there are some people that, have forgotten.
Yeah.
Yeah. That part didn't take long.
No, it's unfortunate.
For a while, every box we ran everybody was on high alert. I think I ran one working fire after that, I forget who the battalion chief was, but he was spooked because it was, and it manifested itself. It was a garage fire. I came around inside Charlie, and there was that punched through a hole in the wall, and it was little bit of flame coming out, and I'm like, okay. And as soon as I said that over the radio, like everything changed. Because I remember I was in the middle of my transmission, and the homeowner went back inside, and I think I might have dropped an expletive saying like, "Oh fuck, this dude's going back inside." But for a while, everybody was on like their A game, and I went to 13 a few months after Woodscape, and Randy Furman told me, like, he tells me a story. He's like, I just remember hearing this litany of expletives and a BA come flying out of Side Charlie on 131. Because I went to check it that morning, and it was at like 3,800 PSI. Mm. And I probably like cursed in both English and Spanish, and I just launched this thing. Thankfully, a tanker wasn't there because I would have hit it. But I think I chipped the floor of the engine bay. I was just furious. I'm like, that quickly, huh? That quickly. At one of the most remote places where help is not coming for a while.
Yeah, and it's interesting to consider just how much of the department has come since then.
Yeah.
I wasn't here for that.
A lot.
So maybe we do need to talk about it a little more and some of those lessons. And I know you've done a ton of work putting those classes together and trying to share the experience as much as possible. And there's a whole new generation out there, since then. So,
I don't know about you guys. I try to make a point to visit Woodscape every now and then.
Yeah, we ride down there from 7 here and there.
There were a couple of times that the neighborhood Karens were trying to, because, off duty one like Saturday morning, and I'm just walking around. I had some lady be like, "You can't be here." I'm just like pointing to my uniform, like, "Sure I can." I'm like, "Oh God, I'm going to get in trouble." And the other day we're leaving, where was it that we did Thor recently? Somewhere in Fives area. And on the way back, Chad Clark was the officer. I'm like, "Hey, you mind?" He's like, "Not at all." Because we had 2, like, brand spanking new guys, like a year and a half in. Mm-hmm. And one of them was like, "Holy shit, I didn't realize how big this place was." Like, I don't think they grasp the concept. I don't know how much we're talking about it in the academy or at firehouses. But it's, I do make it a point to at least once a year, if not multiple times, just to go and
yeah. Yeah, we've done the same.
That energy.
Yeah, bring some of our new people up. I still am active with the fireground survival programs in the academy. I know there's some at least cursory level awareness they have of the incident, and then just fireground survival skills for the academy. And I know there are plenty of people out there still holding up their end of the bargain and doing things every day to improve and get that 1%. And there are some that, it is easy just to, work a 24-hour shift. So sometimes it is easy to kick the feet up and not work out and go hide in your bunk and, do those things. But, the captain that was with us there at night, he was, a year out from retirement, over 30 years on, and he was in there with us. Yeah. These things can happen on the last day of our careers.
Yeah. You just never know.
Yeah.
And I still go to work thinking I may not have ran the worst call yet.
Yeah.
Yeah. You got to keep getting after it.
One of my guys, just the other day said, just a phenomenal human being. He was like, "When I get assigned my position, I want to know that I am the best person, and they chose me for that spot. And if that's layout, you will not find anybody else in the county right now that is going to lay out better than me. You're not going to find anybody else who's driving that ambulance is going to be the 2 out better than me. And that is my spot, and I'm going to own it. And I'm going to do everything in my power to be the best person I can be for that job for that 24-hour period." And I think if everybody just took a little shred of that and, focused on their job for that day, and like, what's that one little bit? It doesn't have to be anything grand. It doesn't have to be some 4-hour hands-on training. Even if it's just some little bit where you can say, "I did something today. I improved myself. I experienced a little bit of healthy struggle." That little drip every single day for 30 years, you're going to look back on and realize, I did okay.
Yeah.
And I was ready.
And it's just it's not just a work thing, but it's just a lifestyle where be healthy, exercise and, do some little things here and there. And it's good for you at home and it's good for you at work.
Yeah.
It's not here or there or separating whatever. It's a lot of little things you can do that make it easier for you and good over the long run.
You hit on this earlier. It's not selfish to take care of yourself.
No, man.
I think self-care gets thrown out a little too easy. And I've actually had people say that, and some people have joked, but some people have said this seriously. Like, no, I've got my cup of sugar and I'm going to go watch Netflix and this is self-care because I need to decompress. That's not self-care.
Yeah.
Yes, do the things to fill your cup, but that means go connect with a friend, go have lunch with somebody that you care about and have meaningful conversation. Go on that trip, go hike that mountain, go travel somewhere to broaden your horizons and expectations and meet new people. Do the workout. Even if you're having an off day and don't feel good, get some rest and then just go for a light run. Throw in a backpack, go a rock, go walk your dog.
You can get some mobility. In the living room
do
floor.
Yoga.
Yeah.
Listen to a meditation. Eat
sit in silence. Turn the phone off a little bit.
Right.
Let some silence come in and zen out for a little bit.
That is growth. Yeah. That is the thing that will fill your cup. That is going to make you a deeper, fuller person. So I think we just need to be mindful of what we're doing on not just our off days, but yes, obviously what we're doing on the floor. Right. And just not be neglectful to relationships. Because when we don't have this job anymore, I think that's really going to matter. And just having that even now and in retirement or when you hang the hat up, just knowing what that mission is and just doing something every day to improve it. We were talking to Dave. I was just you left it better than you found it.
Man,
and if you can say that,
you're doing good.
That's a good career. Yeah.
Did all right.
Yeah. It doesn't have to be a major call for you to need to be oh, I had something major. I'm going to go look at this. I first started noticing changes in myself far before Woodscape happened, when I'd be on my way home from work and I'd be thinking about a medical call that happened 10 years ago at the same traffic light on my way home every morning. These are the little signs, those little calls out. When you graduate the academy, communication's important. If you, get that therapist, get somebody to talk to. It's really nice to have that third, I know you can get a lot from friends and talking and chatting and everything, but having that third party person that you can really tell everything to without fear of judgment.
Yeah.
That's a big deal.
Yeah.
So
don't underestimate it.
Let's live healthy so we can retire and, do even better things.
And if you're having one of those dark days, it's okay. It's okay. It's okay to feel that darkness. And it's okay to remember it and miss it and hate it and love it. And it's okay to wish it never happened. And at the same time to wish it never stopped. And it's okay to want to take it all back. And at the same time, to want to do it all again. And if you've got in your mind that you think that people don't understand, that's okay. They don't. But you do. You know darkness. You know evil. But more important than that, you know good. You know light. And you know laughter and love better than anyone. So, embrace that darkness. Own it. Don't look away from it. Don't bury it in booze or in pills. Listen. Listen to what Corporal Scott Procopio would have been saying to you. Live your life. Embrace your life. With physical activity and with nature and with jujitsu and with sun and with laughter and guitar and good memories and creativity and discipline. Discipline yourself so you can free yourself and move forward into the future where there's no more darkness and no more war, but peace.
Hey everyone, it's TJ here from Keep the Promise. As you know, this podcast is all about helping firefighters become more resilient and well-rounded so that they can be a force for good within their fire department and their community. But today I want to talk to you about something that's just as important, and that is supporting firefighters who are going through tough times. When one of our fellow firefighters is off work because they have to go to the Center for Excellence, they have to go to rehab, they have mental health issues, or they have other health issues, it really takes away their support system and it wreaks havoc on their finances and their family's finances. And many times, these brothers and sisters are left to struggle alone, away from their support system and the people who love them without the resources they need to recover. That's why I'm setting a bold new goal. And that is to reach 150 total patrons on Patreon so that we can start a fund to help firefighters and their families during these challenging times. And I need your help to make it happen. With your support on Patreon, we'll be able to provide financial assistance to firefighter families who are battling things like addiction, depression, and cancer. We're going to help alleviate the financial strain that can come with being away from the fire department so that our brothers and sisters can focus on healing and recovering. Now, reaching 150 total patrons is a big goal, but I believe that we can do it together. And when we do, we'll be able to make a real difference in the lives of those who serve and protect alongside us. So, if you're not already a patron, I invite you to join us today. Head over to joinkeepthepromise.com and sign up today. Again, that is joinkeepthepromise.com. And if you already are a patron, thank you so much for your support. You'll be receiving some exclusive rewards and perks as a way of saying thanks. Together, let's show our fellow firefighters that we've got their back just like they always have ours. Thank you for listening. Let's get started with the episode.